Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started today. The title of our presentation today is Small Moments, Big Impact, all about embedding micro-learning into daily work. So I want to ask you all to do a quick scan of your workspace. And I am willing to bet that if not right now, at some point you've had one of those bright, colorful sticky notes with a handwritten reminder stuck to your monitor, right? Maybe it said something like call Sam, don't forget this deadline, whatever it does, well, that humble little square is more than just office decor, right? It's short, it's relevant, shows up when you need it. And whether we really realize it or not, that sticky note is micro-learning in its most primitive form. So it teaches us something really simple but powerful. If we want learning to actually stick, we have to stop pulling people out of work to give it to them. Instead, we need to meet them right where they work and right where they need it the most. That's what our focus is all about today. So a little bit of a story for you. I'm not sure how many of you joining today have a teenager or have experienced having a teenager, but I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she's no exception to your typical teenager. Yep, you guessed it. She knows everything. She knows it all. So I resisted for the longest time downloading TikTok, and she really wanted me to download it, kept encouraging me to. And finally, I decided to download the app, and embarrassingly, not that long ago. But one day, shortly after downloading the app, I was kind of scrolling, looking through stuff, and it was with her in the room, and I kind of started ranting about how I couldn't find a video that I was just watching. And, she gave me that look that only a teenager can give you, right? Equal parts like pity and disbelief, essentially. And, she said, Mom, you can find it again. And like, before I could even ask how, she, tapped a few buttons, showed me what to do. And suddenly I'm looking at my watch history. And, 12 seconds, right? And now I'll never lose another video again. So, I kind of thought about that, and I was like, that really is like micro learning in action, essentially, right? It's not a manual, not an hour-long training, just a quick, relevant nugget, exactly in the flow of what I was doing that solved the problem for me in the moment, right? I mean, with a healthy dose of teenage sarcasm, but problem still solved. So, all right. So I'm curious of that unintentional learning, like I had there, right? Where do you learn the most, unintentionally? So I'm gonna launch a quick poll for you guys. If you'll take that real quick and let me know where you find yourself learning the most unintentionally. Awesome. Got a few more. Give it a couple more seconds, and then I'll end it. All right. So let's see. Okay. Most people are on a walk or listening to a podcast, or doom scrolling and stumbling on something smart are our biggest answers. Now, I feel like some people are not being honest because no one answered in the bathroom. I mean, but that might kind of tie in with the doom scrolling too. So, anyway. But thank you guys for sharing your thoughts and honesty on that. What's fascinating about this is that, all of these answers really just highlight one simple thing, right? Learning happens all the time, often when we least expect it. It's rarely when we sit down and say, okay, time to learn. It's when we're in the middle of doing, relaxing, resetting, or solving a real world problem that we encounter on a daily basis, right? So that's exactly why microlearning works, because it meets people in those moments. Excuse me, between tasks, during habits, inside conversations, or even while you're just standing at the coffee pot waiting for it to brew, right? So this poll wasn't just for fun. It was kind of a proof point, right? If we want learning to stick, we don't need to pull people out of work. We need to drop learning into their work and into their everyday habits. All righty. So in the next little bit, this is what we're going to focus on today. touch on a little bit of like that brain science behind why microlearning works. Look at some, real world ways to embed microlearning into your team or your learner's day. And then really focus on some takeaways for like practical ideas for implementation and the ways you can really just, jump on this tomorrow, right? This session isn't really about theory. It's about things you can actually start doing next week, even if you've got zero budget and a calendar full of meetings, right? Yeah. All right. So back to that sticky note for a second. Why do you think the sticky note works? I'd love to hear in the chat what you see as the reason for that sticky note microlearning reminder moment working. It's not flashy, it's not gamified, it's not part of a 90-minute workshop or LMS course that it works. So what are the characteristics of, what makes it work? Okay, we've got, because it's right there for me when I need to see it. It's in my face. Yep. That's awesome. Any other thoughts on the reason for why it works so well? So basically, I can get my slide there. There we go. Right? It's short. Again, okay, that's exactly quick reminder. Yep, quick. There we go. Short. It's just a few words, right? It doesn't take you long to absorb. You see it and you move on, right? It's contextual, like we said. It's in my face. It's placed exactly where the work happens, exactly where you need it, right? Timely. It shows up when it's needed. It's not 6 weeks before or 6 weeks after, and you've forgotten, or it's when it just doesn't matter. So it's really the simplest, most basic form of microlearning in your flow of work, right? Awesome. So that brain science that I talked about, right? The why behind how microlearning is effective. It's not just by chance. It really is grounded in powerful science. So let's just take a second to review some of these theories that help support how and why we want to find ways to embed microlearning into our work. So the spacing effect. This is, basically saying that when we spread all that learning out over time instead of cramming it all at once, our brains are going to retain more of it, right? Microlearning really does this naturally by delivering those short lessons over days or week. It's spaced out. It's easier for you to remember those things. Retrieval practice. This means we learn better by actively recalling information, not just reviewing it. In our L&D world of microlearning, we often include quick quizzes, decision scenarios, asking what would you do. It's that it prompts a learner to actually retrieve that information and helps boost their memory, within that real world performance. Then cognitive load theory. Our brains can only handle so much at once, right? And microlearning really avoids that overload by focusing on one topic at a time, making it easier to digest and apply. So now that we kind of have an idea of the why, let's go on to the how. All right. So we've got 4 tactics to embed learning in the flow of the work that we're going to kind of chat about and explore a little bit. Just some ideas to get your creativity flowing and thinking about what might work in your world or whatever you've got going on right now. First is email nudges with a twist, right? Short daily or weekly tips sent via email with fun visuals, GIFs, memes. An example of this could be, say, every Monday morning you've got team leads on within your organization that you want to send a Monday micro moment to, right? It could be one behavior-based tip, like, hey, start the week by checking in with your lowest performing rep. Or it could just be a simple reflection question, right? Who needs your attention today? It really takes less than a minute to read and hopefully sparks those conversations that are very helpful in a team lead role, like in one-on-ones or those types of things. Our next idea is those QR code quick hits, right? I know that everybody has used a QR code. They're out everywhere. You go to an event, you're scanning to win something, right? But it really can be effective in the flow of work without having to have somebody go too far off where they are. You can embed exactly where they are. So I'm kind of curious from you guys. Your learners or your team members or whoever you're kind of involved with and designing learning for now, where in their physical or digital environment do you think that a QR code could deliver really effective just-in-time support without that needing to log into an LMS? Let me hear your ideas in the chat about where you see a QR code learning moment being really effective. An example that I can give you to maybe spark something for you too is, service advisors in the automotive world in a dealership. Maybe there's a QR desk at their desk, their check-in desk right by the customer, where they can watch, a 90-second reminder on customer walk-around etiquette, or a reminder of the walk-around process, something within it, or some sort of tip for what they're doing in the moment to help them out. Taking attendance during a webinar to get a form. Oh, I love that. Yes, man, that makes it super efficient and easy. Love that. Any other thoughts on the QR code before I move on? Awesome. All right, let's go. So chatbots have become a big thing, right? But they're also a great way to sort of gamify things, using that trivia. All of those messaging apps that we use now, Slack, MS Teams, WebEx, whatever it is, they make it really easy to incorporate chatbots these days. So why not use that and leverage that for pushing, daily, weekly quiz questions or prompts, right? Maybe it's every Friday you have a bot in your teams post a 3-question scenario showdown or something, and you can then track those points on a leaderboard. Not only is it a micro learning moment, it really prompts engagement and competition and gets people kind of fired up to participate. So a really, really good benefit there. All right. And then finally, the fourth one is, embedding in learning tools. And I'd love to hear from you guys on this one too, where you see a tool helping, right? Think about a tool your employees, partners, clients use, whether it's, a CRM, a system dashboard, a ticketing platform. What's a moment in that flow where like a micro tip or, a quick fact pop up could help assist and really prevent common mistakes? Share any thoughts you have in the chat. So, another idea could be if companies, for customer service rep, in the company's knowledge base, to say that the customer service rep is taking a call and needs to quickly search for something about a refund policy. Maybe a short, fast facts micro panel appears above the articles or next to the articles, highlights, top 3 things to say, common mistakes to avoid. Just, quick hit, 45 seconds to 60 seconds to be able to absorb and give you some good guidance to how you can tackle that problem right in the flow, right? Any other thoughts on embedding within your actual learning tools? And I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna get to those best practices. This kind of culminates like everything we've been talking about, and is those just really good reminders of what you need to consider as you start to think about how you're going to put together microlearning. So first is one goal at a time, right? Focus on one behavior idea per unit. Ask yourself, maybe what is that one thing that I want them to do, right? And as we talked about, right, quick, under 5 minutes. We want to be short and respectful of time. And honestly, probably 1 to 3 minutes is even more ideal for most formats, especially when you think about things like video, right? You a 5-minute video is an investment sometimes. So that 1 to 3 minutes is really the sweet spot, I feel like. And then we talked about this with the sticky note, right? Context is key. Place it where it's going to be used. Don't separate it from the actual doing. It needs to be, sort of a partner with that doing piece of it. Reinforce often, right? Space it out and revisit it. We talked about the repetition theory, right? You don't want to just, it's not a one and done. In the L&D world, we do not do one and done, right? So make sure that you are giving spacing it out enough and revisiting it enough. And then add interaction. Don't just ask for somebody to read something. Even if it's just an interaction on screen where you do a slider, you have to answer a quiz, or you prompt them to try something later in their day. Actually add engagement for the learner to do something. And then always, make it fun. And making it fun can be just as simple as, right, the visuals, right? Friendly, or funny visuals, engage a little humor or visual surprise really goes a long way to making it fun for people. All right. I would love to know in the chat, as we kind of work through some of this stuff before I get to kind of like the implementation part, what's one microlearning idea, moment, tactic that you're kind of excited to try now? What have you been thinking about as we've been going through this? This could be for your team, for your learners, your clients, or even yourself. No idea is like too small, too scrappy. I'd love to hear if you've had anything kind of that we've talked about inspire you on what you can do in your world or with your learners. I'll tell you one thing that I've started doing recently that's more of a micro-learning moment for myself is utilizing calendar reminders quite a bit more. Trying to put, like if I have a meeting or I have something coming up, if I have some thoughts or content that I want to review, putting it in a calendar reminder that pops up for me right before I need to do something, right before I'm going into that meeting, or right before I need to prep for something, makes it really, really easy to then open my reminder, review what I need to, and feel prepared to move on. So I like the ideas of short explainer videos and microlearning. Love it. Yep. Those. I think that those, like I talked about the 1 to 3 minutes, right? And if you make it impactful, those are such a benefit in the flow of work. All right. Any other ideas before I move on and talk about how you can start implementing this tomorrow? A couple of seconds. Okay, awesome. So, now that we got the inspiration, let's implement, right? First off, you want to identify the opportunity. And so start thinking about, okay, so where's performance slipping, right? Where do I see people asking the same questions again and again? Look for those high need, low friction moments that you can, quick wins that can even really help with, like, sales conversations or something with onboarding or those, post-service follow-ups. Then next, we've talked about this a little bit throughout the session too, is picking one tactic, right? Not only do you want to choose one topic, you want to choose just one delivery method. Is it going to be that email tip? Is it going to be the chatbot quiz? Is it the embedded tool prompt? So start light. You don't want to, try 15 different micro-learning tactics at once, because then that, it's not really micro-learning anymore at that point. So after you've made those decisions, you can pilot and observe, right? Run it for 2 to 4 weeks, or depending on what your cadence is. It might need to be longer if it's a weekly or monthly thing. Just for 2 to 4 rounds of of delivering that learning. And watch for signs of engagement, usage, behavior shifts. Ask for feedback. And you really don't even need a complicated strategy, right, to get that feedback. Just ask people, hey, was that helpful? Did that help you in the moment? Did you find that to be a benefit to you? And then finally, refine and scale. Think about what worked, what needs tweaking. And you can think about scaling, horizontally across different teams if that's what makes sense, or vertically deeper into the flow. Just build momentum through success stories and replication. All right. So that's pretty much all we have today. I want to leave you with this quote that really, to me, says it all. Right? You don't need a classroom; you need a moment. The most powerful learning doesn't always happen in a training room. It happens in the little moments that happen throughout your day. So as you leave today, think less about building classrooms and really more about building moments.